Man, for all his life, from life until death, there are two faculties that are continuously working for him. And by running behind these two faculties, man gets exhausted and then dies. Hello friends, welcome to my channel All Things Spiritual. Today we will talk about the mind and the intelligence or the buddhi. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Mind and intelligence are the two main faculties that man is so much interested in, and he spends his life on it, and he doesn't pay much attention to other things. There is another faculty that is midway between the two faculties, and that's the aham or the I of the person. And around this I is then entangled the ego of the person. This ego and the lifetimes of desires are then available to the man to keep him unsatisfied forever. And in this play of desires, he gets to enjoy the riches of life, which he then takes keen interest in the objective world. The mind of a man works in mysterious ways. For example, sometimes man gets greedy and he may think to steal someone else's jewelry and replace them with fake ones. Such is the mind of a man that thinks impure thoughts. These kind of acts commit a sin, and the person may trap others by doing that, but in the end the trap is set for his own self. These karmas then come full circle at the time of death, and the person is then reminded of all these karmas that he or she has done, and it begins to agonize him. The intelligence becomes vitiated to such a level that it gives the person wrong ideas, and as explained in the example, the man uses the method of stealing to satisfy his greed. Mind of such a man seeks gratification through the idea that jewelry has to be stolen. Then the manas and the buddhi then come together, and the I of the person is just on the wrong side, and he is very selfish, and he is generally wicked only, and this wickedness of man has to be changed. And if the ego goes unchecked of any person, each person could then go ahead and beat up another person as well. The manas and the buddhi hides such wickedness within man, and this the man only knows. Also, anger is another aspect which the man succumbs to, and at the time of death it's going to be really messy and cursed, as there is no forgiveness provided for the sins that have been committed. And at times your devotional life may be able to help you out in your future lifetimes. For example, a beggar may get a few more coins on a certain day due to some devotional content of his past life. This is a past life karma, and devotional service comes into play in the present. If not, then the household doesn't have any income and they have to then stay hungry. A carpenter may get some clients due to his past life devotional deeds. If the carpenter karmas are bad, then no one would order any furniture from the carpenter. An example in this regard is of a lawyer who was full of dark and negative energies, and he had no clients. He was utterly poor, such a dark energy that he was carrying that his entire home was filled with dark energies, and the lawyer wasn't able to get through his life and had to spend his lifetime in poverty even though he had a degree. So even though money is not everything, it is still needed for us to live our lives in the world. Why does this happen? Why do we face such poverty in our lives? The reason of this is that the mind's makeup in itself is very comprehensive. Mind is not a small organ. It's unlike if you think that a mind of a midget is smaller than the mind of a fully grown man. That is in itself not true. The mind in itself is empty, but how does it manifest in the body of a man? That itself is one of God's greatest miracles. The mind has 4 compartments as I described before: the manas, buddhi, the chitta, and the ego. Apart from these, there is an outer, inner, and the guilt-free or blameless, or what is called an abodh mind. The man doesn't at all know what this guilt-free and innocent mind is. The influence of the outer objective world on the mind itself is so strong that the man remains at the outer levels of his mind only. And when the jiva retains itself in the outer levels of the mind, then his progress into spirituality is very very tough and he won't be able to move inwards. The inner mind is supposed to have light in itself, but most of us have only darkness in our inner minds, and the experiences of such people with darkness in their inner minds are due to their past karmas that end up with darkness in their lives. As an example, some of Sai Baba's devotees opposed him, some of them treated him unfairly, and those people have now come back with a darkened inner mind. On the flip side, the devotees of Sai Baba that fed him, and they have come back with a mind full of light, and the light that they carry is so beautiful that the people, just due to their service to their guru, have received an open heart, have never a doubt of any sort in their minds. The mind of such person is very loving, and it continues to be loving and moving towards the path of moksha. Such a person doesn't look at others as a separate person. They look toward them with love and respect, even though they themselves are situated into individuality. The majority of us, on the other hand, who don't get to serve our gurus, then turn wicked, and such people are very full of themselves only. They feel that they are themselves God. They feel maximum separation between themselves and all other people in the world. And such foolish people think that they are the most intelligent people that have walked the planet. This happens mainly due to the past karmas of the person. The karmas of the person produce darkness on the inner mind of the person. God knows the mind of a man as he is his creator, and when the mind and the intelligence are crooked, then the person gets motivated to do bad karmas. So, who is doing this bad karmas? Where does the person get the motivation to do such karmas? The man may ask to make his actions pure, but due to the vitiated thinking and judgment, he is quick to judge others and ready to show his anger and pounce at the other person if he is ever given a chance. Such an act is totally being witnessed by the Atma of the person. So, the karma's mistake, and due to the motivation that is mistaken to do those karmas, and the motivation is given by the intelligence is also mistaken, and the intelligence takes the decision as per the mind's desire, and inside the mind the desires to do bad arises, and there starts the sinning of the jiva. And how does such a sinning and a wicked mind come into play? It comes through the lifetimes of badly motivated karmas, and also in the line of tamasic nature of the being, and this leads to the darkening of the inner mind, and in this darkened mind the man cannot cognize between his rights and wrongs, and is then always motivated to do wrongs only. And then how does this darkness go away? The only way is through chants of the name of God, through a devotional and meditative practice, and being in the right congregation of sacred gatherings of spiritual discourses. And as the darkness fades in the mind, then that way only the irritable personality changes, and the irritable mind doesn't feel the annoyance and displeasures anymore. Irritable personality comes into being due to the darker energies present in the mind. The angered mind is therefore going to burn up the mind, and you may not believe that the man burns up his own mind due to such an anger. And just as a fire erupts and it leads to a lot of smoke that then clouds the jiva's body, more than anger, the smoke is far more vicious as it creates a suffocating existence. It's just smoke in all our minds that makes our lives very unpredictable and unhappy. And such a smoke fills up the mind of a man and devoids him of a life of enlightenment and wisdom, and it takes him away from all happiness. It makes him want more and increases his worldly desires. And as there are many desires, unhappiness enters the mind of a man due to those desires not bearing fruit. And under the umbrella of these desires only, then the man doesn't settle down in a meditative or a devotional practice. As an example, the mind cannot be stilled with a constant thoughts rolling within it. The thoughts are not stoppable, as we cannot put a lid on them and just let them stop on their own. If there is a dark and sinful mind, then it's all the more tough to stop such incessant thoughts. These people have been wicked and behaved in a wicked fashion in their previous lives, and they have no remorse over their sins that they have committed over several lifetimes. And the feeling of remorse is then then just a start to a healthy, clear and pure mind. An example of curbing desires can be shown through Sai Baba's life. Sai Baba lived his entire life just on rice and dal only, and Baba, as I described in my Sai Baba's video, couldn't see anyone else other than his mother, which is God herself, and he had no interest in food for years together. But he still survived. He went from nook and corner and he didn't face any problems, and the main reason for that was due to not having any desires in his mind. A desire in the mind is considered therefore to be the beginning of the sins of the jiva. But without desires, can man live though? His entire life revolves around desires. As a further understanding, desires in themselves aren't wrong, but the motivation for the desires that stem out of wrong or right bring about sins and virtues in the jiva. Say for example, if someone is interested in buying jewelry for themselves, the desire of having such a jewelry isn't bad in itself, but the desire that arises due to watching someone else wear the jewelry is the problem here. The motivation then goes bad. Say for example, if that person who was wearing the jewelry wasn't there, then such a desire wouldn't even have manifested itself. Hence, the comparison therefore leads to a devastation in the mind of the jiva. So say for another example, if you have a desire to have some food, that in itself isn't wrong, but such a thought shouldn't be arising in the mind of a yogi like Sai Baba. And the yogi shouldn't think in his mind that what am I going to have to eat today? And the sacrifice is such that the mind of a yogi shouldn't be perturbed by any food that the yogi gets. Sai Baba was at a far different level in regards to this. The reason is that he used to donate all the food that he used to receive from his devotees with love. The question then in our minds would be that how would it have been possible for Baba to remain hungry and alive until such a ripe old age? Such is a God's play only. Sai Baba, even though was a son of God, was merged with God consciousness and lived a very vibrant spiritual and absolutely desireless life. An example of how an ego of prior lifetimes could affect a person is through the real life events unfolding of a boy who is in his 20s and is completing his medical internship but has not been allowed by his boss to leave his premises of work and has to sleep every night for 2 hours only. God may not show compassion to this person as his karmas are unfolding right unto this moment. This boy didn't have any bad births, and this boy came with a great birth every time and was very affluent, and at one point in his time he was a king of a city in India, and also in his prior birth he was very affluent, but this led to him having a very high ego about himself. Such an ego got carried over into his next life, which is the current life itself. This is a lesson that how a boy that now the boy has to face, and gone is the life of the king. He could try to look himself up as a king, but now his life is totally different, and he is a normal human being with a very high intelligence, and due to this intelligence only the person starts to feel pride. This is a trap. Such a scenario is pretty obvious. Such obviousness is noticed when the person has to sleep on 2 chairs for days together just for a couple of hours. Such a boy who used to live in riches is now forced to sleep on chairs. That is the rap the person gets once their ego goes high. This is the fight of the man versus his ego. Unless he lowers his ego, God won't make his living state better. All that the boy had was just pride about his own intelligence. If he didn't have the pride about himself, then he wouldn't have faced such a situation. The boy is very close to being a genius in himself, but his ego is also at that level as well. Having such an intelligence, therefore, is very dangerous at times. This boy is still an exceptional case, as even though he has births with high ego, but he gets high intelligence too with each birth. But not everyone of us get such intelligence intelligence, but we might be given less intellect, and such a plan is a plan of God only. The mind, even though is bright, is then veiled by a shadow, and man cannot experience even a regular intelligence in such a scenario. The veiling is due to the karmas of the individual, and this leads to pride and craftiness in the individual. We therefore have no options ahead of us but to purify our minds and our intellects. You have to understand the darker energies that are operating in our minds. If we have to try to disassociate ourselves with the darker energies, then the intelligence that is lustrous, energetic, brilliant and gifted comes forth. Chants and meditation and a devotional life help us to remove the veils of our minds, and it's also very important to note that everyone's desires are different, and even if a person tries to meditate, he might open his eyes and check on his phone, or maybe this thing or that thing that he was supposed to do and he might have forgotten about it are all the thoughts that are going on in the mind of man. It's therefore not very easy to find light in your mind. The darkness of the mind is all that the man sees upon closing his eyes in meditation. The darkness refers to the sin the jiva has committed, and as the desires dissipate, the happiness, satisfaction in our lives return, and we live a joyous and worry-free existence. How did you like the video on mind and intelligence and how they shape up our lives? Please do let me know in the comment section below. Please also don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel if you like the content, and I will see you in the next video.